Hey, how's it going? Hope you're doing as good as I'm doing. It is a very tiresome day today. Just getting into it. A little bit of context. I've done this a few times in the past couple weeks because of how much I've been traveling. But I worked out last night until about 8:30 p.m., maybe 9. And I have an 8-hour drive in store for me today to get all the way back to Orlando because I'm visiting Alabama. And I kind of had to make the judgment call of, do I go in the morning and get it out of the way while my body isn't like stuck in a seat for 8 hours, or do I just wait and go at like fucking midnight in Orlando? And I chose to just go in the morning. I feel like that was the best call I could have made, you know, even though it was more of a guess. And yeah, I'm beat. I will say I'm happy with how it turned out. You know, it was a very rough couple of warm-up sets, just to say the fucking least. Snatches did not feel very good and fluent until my second working set. And even then, like, I think there was like one more rep, like on the last set maybe, that was just feeling like I just was almost going forward with it just because I had no fucking core strength. Like, my body was just in goddamn shambles. And then, you know, of course, if you do an Olympic lift and don't feel the explosiveness and don't feel that core confidence, that core drive, the squats are going to feel just as bad, if not worse. And don't get me wrong, I love putting in a little bit of extra effort. But today, like, I shit you not, 3 plates felt like 4. From last program where I did 455 for a double at my very highest top set, on that peak week, I think I was more like into squatting the 455 than I was doing 335 today. Which that's just kind of how fatigue is sometimes. But anyway, before I get into all that shit, physically, I'm going to give it a whopping 7.45. You know, as you would expect, I am fucking dead. There's just not much more to it. It's what I kind of expected, but because I expected that it would be a bit harder, I made sure to try to put in as much effort as I could in the areas that I knew I would struggle with catching my snatches, pulling as hard as I could up, and not pushing forward. It took a bit, but I got there. And then on squats, just making sure I maintain my core and my vertical drive as much as I can, keeping my back straight and all that shit. So, you know, effort's there for sure. Form is there, sure. My body's dead. That's just how it fucking is today. And then mentally, I'll just give it a 7.8. You know, pretty solid. Like, again, on these kinds of days, you got to remember, like, especially because it's 9 in the morning, no gym homies, just me and my thoughts, going hard as fuck on the weights, doing the best I fucking can. And when I'd rather go later, and I'm all busy and whatever, but I'm making the most of what I got. And so it's not that being fucked up in the gym physically fucks up my mentality, but it just inevitably will drag me down just a little bit, you know? But regardless, because I persevered and I pushed through, I feel fucking wonderful. So let's just get into it, because I don't have anything to fucking talk about. So we're just going to talk about how these weights felt today, because it was atrocious. Not only did 3 plates feel like 4 on my back squat, but 1 plate almost felt like 2 on snatch. As stupid as that sounds, it's just, that happens sometimes. You have to recognize in your training that if you are training more volume or doing bodybuilding type stuff, going high reps, high sets, for lower percentages than what you could typically be able to do for 1 working set, then over time you are going to get fucking fatigued. That is just how it works. You know, your body simply cannot keep up with it at the most efficient rate every single time. And especially for me, sure, if I went later in the day, I probably would have felt better physically. But it's just, you have to look back on your own experience and really trust yourself and be like, hey, is this going to fuck me up if I go later, or is it going to fuck me up if I go now? Or more than that, you can't even imagine fucking up, because I hate imagining failure. It's more so which time or like which way of training will lead to the most efficient effort, you know, the most efficient strength, you know, like muscle growth, whatever you're doing. What will give you the most positive upbringing outcome that you can possibly imagine? And for me, just waking up and going straight to the gym before my 8-hour drive sounded a little bit better than driving for 8 fucking hours and then going to the gym. I feel like even though my core was in shambles this morning because I worked out less than 12 hours ago last night doing a full clean and jerk day, which is the most strenuous day of the week for me because I do full clean and jerks, front squats, and clean pulls. And a clean and jerk is basically 2 lifts in one, so my snatch day is a little bit easier fatigue-wise. But I gotta remember, like, I can't think of the negative what-ifs. You know, I gotta kind of shut that shit off for the sake of my own growth, you know, my own positivity in my daily life. Because I could sit here and be like, oh, you know, could have been better. Like, maybe I should have just waited till tonight. I know that I work better in the evenings. But I also got to think of the what-ifs of what if I sat in the car for 8 hours and I couldn't control my core the way I need to, and I just was barely able to work out at all at the other gym. And again, another thing I gotta remember, I have to go work at a different gym if I go somewhere else. The weight's gonna feel different because it's gonna be new equipment. Of course, I'm gonna be prepared for that if I gotta change to a different gym because I'll be going back to 24-hour fitness starting tomorrow. But it still takes at least one workout to get used to those new, like the different equipment, because the crunch equipment and the 24 equipment is a lot different from each other. And so while I know I could put in the effort and get that done on a day where I have so much going on and I'm so fatigued and my body is just in shambles, I would rather use the weights that I feel the most comfortable with. And I have been working at a crunch for the past 2 weeks, and quite frankly, their bars are so whippy. So yeah, I chose to stick with those bars that would support me the most. I stuck at the gym that I was comfortable and used to for the moment. And then tomorrow I will have twice as much rest as I normally would for the gym that I haven't been to in over 2 weeks, you know? And that to me seems like more of a win. So again, you got to think about the positive what ifs. You know, I don't like thinking about the future too much because it literally doesn't exist. You know, it's not a thing you can bank on because it hasn't happened and you never know what's going to happen. But if you're going to think about any what-ifs, at least do yourself a favor and think about the good ones, because those are the ones that are going to lead to the most positive outcome that will make you feel the best in the long term, you know? So I guess other than that, you got to really think about your programming with this stuff, because it's not so much just a matter of oh, I just feel shit today and it is what it is. I'm just going to be awful today and have shit form and shit whatever and just come back tomorrow and hopefully I feel better. It's no. If this is a consistent thing you're going through, then yeah, definitely fucking take a minute and look at that and take a couple of days to be oh, okay, well maybe I would be more efficient if I did this kind of training this way. For me, literally just last program during my peak week, I decided to change, or it was the week before my peak week, I decided to change how I did things, because I've always done bench and squat before my Olympic lifts on those days, because I'm just that kind of Olympic lifter that likes to train squat and bench for strength, even though I'm mainly an Olympic lifter. It's just the way I love doing it. And I had the impression that because I wanted to isolate the strength in those lifts on those days, it would be better for me to just do them first so that I could get as much effort from those lifts as possible, and I'll just go lighter on the Olympic lifts right after. But what I found out, it took a while. I trained like that for a good 2 years before it caught up to me. And what I found out after all that experience and all that training, even though I did it for so long and felt so confident in it, is that Olympic and power lifts are so fucking different. I don't train my power lifts like power lifts. I do high bar, ass-to-grass squats, and I do what most power lifters would say is a close grip on bench and use more explosiveness than shoulder strength. But they're still very stationary and very strict lifts compared to the Olympic lift. So if I'm gonna, what ended up happening was I was sacrificing technique on my Olympic lifts by doing my power lifts first, which, if you know anything about Olympic lifting, it is not a strength sport. It is a technique sport for the most part. You got to always have your technique at 100% and just hope that you can get a little bit of strength on top of that over time. That's why you grow so much slower in that sport. So I came to learn that doing my Olympic lifts first would be the most optimal way to train because I could use all that explosiveness right out the gate after I got all that rest from the past 24 hours. And not only that, but power lifts stretch your muscles way more than your Olympic lifts do. Olympic lifts are just way more strenuous on your core and your joints. And so as long as you're not overdoing the weight, you should honestly feel pretty warmed up for a squat, or like, again, if you're going to do a bench, that's a little different because it's kind of tough to put bench into Olympic lifting. I did it my own way. I just took the weight down a good bit and then reworked it back up so it wouldn't hurt me. But regardless, you should feel way better and way more warmed up to do a power lift right after doing an Olympic lift, because it primes your CNS. It gets all of your joints and bones conditioned to like hold on to the heavy weight. And your main muscle groups, like your quads and your biceps, triceps, shoulders, back, whatever, those should all be at a maximum, like ready to fucking push as much weight as possible, because you don't have to use that much main muscle group strength on an Olympic lift. You know, like if I catch a snatch over my head, I can sit there and pause rep that overhead squat for a fucking minute before I could, if I wanted to, before standing up, because the squat part of an overhead squat, or of catching a clean and then front squatting it up, that's the easy part. It's just catching it that's so goddamn difficult. And then especially on a clean and jerk, you have to move as quickly and efficiently as possible, because the longer you take on a clean, the harder it'll be on a split jerk. Anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself. The whole reason I bring all this up is because you need to look back on this type of experience, and even though may have been doing something the same way for so long and whatever, it might be a good idea to try something different. Like today, I would typically just wait and go at midnight at the other gym, but I knew that if I did that, even though I'm more fatigued now than I would have been if I went at night, I probably would have had a worse workout, because my body's going to be stationary for too long, and quite frankly, just at more risk of injury. Even if the weights felt better, regardless of how the weights feel, if you are at risk for injury, it is not worth it. You know, that's literally what ego lifting is. And like in a bodybuilding sense, I feel that's a little bit more flexible, because you're doing so much lighter weight than you need to be doing. Because if you're a bodybuilder and not a strength builder, then you don't really need to be going over 60% of anything, like 60-70%. But you know, it's just, take that kind of shit with a grain of salt. I don't really know where to go with it, but just be open, you know, and keep in mind that what you're doing may lead to some shitty factors. Like, I really did not like how heavy 3 plates felt today, but it could have been so much worse, and it also could have gone as good as it was supposed to. And because I will never know what the other what if of it is, then I'm just not going to think about it. You know, it literally doesn't exist. There's no point in focusing on something that you can't compare to. So, you know, I could have felt better, but I've already done it. I did the workout. I put in as much effort as I could. I think I performed pretty well for as tired as I was, and I just got to take it like that. And I got to also give myself the credit and really affirm to myself that this effort I'm putting in now is going to be the reason I make the biggest steps of growth later. You know, rather than thinking of the what ifs of this certain scenario today, maybe think of the what ifs of like, okay, well, I already did the thing today. You know, I already did today's workout, even if it may have been a little bit less efficient. But is this going to lead to better results in the future? And if you're consistent, passionate, and disciplined, as I'm always fucking saying, you will make progress. I swear to fucking God. You just will. It's always going to be difficult. But if you can really like get on the grind of actually going and never missing days and loving it every second that you do it, you know, even if you're going to have shit days, but you already know that because you've put in so much experience and effort, you know you still love it anyway, that's when it's going to become almost easy to make the most growth, because you're just doing what you love. And that's what it's all fucking about. So even though today was a lot tough, I love it. You know, I have no regrets, and it's only going to make me better. The more toughness I go through, the better I am in the long run. So tomorrow, when you see me, maybe my clean and jerk and bench day will just fly like a fucking breeze. And next week, we get to do rep maxes I get set to 3. I'm going to do rep maxes for 3 on my Olympic lifts, and then rep maxes for 6 on my power lifts. Not for every single lift, but just the main ones on the main days. So you'll see, I won't go too into it, but let me know how your day's been going, how life's been, how the weights have been feeling, because I love hearing about it. And, you'll see me tomorrow. So I appreciate y'all sticking around. See you.